Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back and welcome to the last couple of sessions of the day. Joining us in our next session is Ed Pank, of APEC Managing Director of WARC. We'll be lifting the lid on Asia's best campaigns. Now, Ed opened the Asia-Pacific office for WARC at the beginning of 2011 in Singapore, bringing comprehensive marketing intelligence service to the region. Now, since then, the business has been expanding at a rapid pace while generating new content with initiatives like the WARC Prize for Asian Strategy. Now, Ed has a creative agency background. Before WARC, he was managing director of Bates in Singapore, where he led teams to develop campaigns for Sony, Heineken, Nokia, and the Singapore Pavilion at the World Expo in Shanghai. Now, before moving to Singapore, Ed was based in London, where he worked for 14 years at Raine Kelly, or Y&R as it's known, and lastly at the Global Business Director for Land Rover, leading teams to develop launch campaigns around the world, so he's very busy there in London. He has won several awards throughout his career, including Effies for Sony and the anti-drugs campaign in Singapore. He's also a regular juror on the Mumbrella Asia Awards. So welcome back, Ed, and over to you.
Right, we've got the heckling going already. That's fantastic. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming to the session this afternoon. I realize I'm in competition with 3 other stages. There's a few brand owners and there's a few panels going on. But I've got a really cracking presentation to share with you today. What I want to do is lift the lid on Asia's best campaigns. And these campaigns we have collected from the WARC Prize for Asian Strategy, which is a prize. We announced the winners just last week, actually, at Facebook on Monday night. And a little bit of context for who we are and for this presentation. So WARC, as it's known, or if you're Australian, it's called WAC, or if you plainly don't understand, it's WARC, which stands for the World Advertising Research Centre. And we create, collate, and curate content from all around the world, about 50 different content partners, and about 40% of the content comes from our own sources, written by our own editors or our own competitions. And what we attempt to do is to draw out the metadata and analysis for that to help our clients do more effective advertising, campaigns, marketing, that kind of thing. So the WARC Prize for Asian Strategy, we had about 200 entrants from across the region. And Nicole McMillan from the Wrigley Company, she was the chief judge this year. And this extract from a video interview that we did with her underlines kind of why we do the prize. It helps build the strategic might of marketers in the region, as it very much highlights creativity in the strategy first and foremost, as opposed to the creative execution. We are interested in great thinking, in strategy, and my objective today, and with the prize, is to help share some of those learnings so that you guys can have some stimulus, some inspiration to do better strategies for your brands and for your clients' brands. So there are 5 kind of key areas that we're going to cover in today's presentation. First is looking at channel planning, and there's this real emphasis on channel choice that's coming out from the prize. You could call it channel first, but actually the channel that is has been selected plays a pivotal role in that campaign. Secondly, the whole area of participation and reaching millennials. There are various examples of campaigns encouraging millennials to get involved with the campaigns, and that's a very highly effective way of engaging that particular audience. Low interest categories delivering high interest ideas. Everyone says, or a few people I've heard have said that they can't do great marketing because they work in a low interest category. I'm going to show you some campaigns today that proves that absolutely wrong. I'm also going to share with you some brands that are adopting blue ocean strategies. So we live in this disruptive world, and a lot of categories are being disrupted, and the players that don't differentiate, they aren't going to succeed. And there are some really nice examples of brands adopting a slightly different strategy and being able to grow their business as a result, and zagging where the others zig. And then the fifth area is mirroring social change. Social purpose has been around for a while, but there are more examples, in particular gender equality, coming out through the prize. And it's interesting to see how brands and advertisers are tapping into this social and cultural change that is happening in markets across the region. So another quote from Nicole, and this is really the theme of the prize. It was often the brands that had to overcome some type of adversity, either a business or a competitive challenge. The brands were brave in making strategic choices distinct to the category norms. And there's this kind of theme of bravery, overcoming risk that transcends the prize. And this is very consistent with some analysis that we've done recently on the Cannes Effectiveness Lines. Cannes Effectiveness Lines is another body of case studies that we take and analyze on WARC. And the CMO of Airbnb, former CMO of Airbnb, Jonathan Mildenhall, he was talking about it was those brands that move out of their comfort zones are the ones that become truly remarkable. And that's consistent with what we're seeing with campaigns in the prize. In terms of the markets that are covered for the WARC Prize for Asian Strategy, India, 54%. Indians love the prize, they love WARC, they love strategy, they love great things. They've been building brands since the 1930s. So a tremendous amount of entrance from the subcontinent, and then you can see a smattering of all the other markets. So let's dive into, first of all, channel choices and have a look at that. Now, this is an analysis of the shortlisted campaigns over the last 3 years. So you can see social in blue, online video in red, and then television in green. What you can see is social increasing, upward trend, and also online video, as you'd expect, but television starting to soften. So what we do is we tag all the information on the case studies on WARC, and all of the channels are tagged, so we can draw out this kind of metadata. And with the rise in social and online video, there's also, it's becoming more common for brands to target influencers. So again, this is looking at shortlisted campaigns, 2016 versus 2017, and you can see 20 percentage points rise for campaigns that are targeting influencers. And just on the right-hand side of the chart, I've just pulled out a checklist of points from a best practice guide on how to target influencers on WARC. The first one is to deprioritize reach as a key metric. It's not necessarily the size of the conversation, but it's the shape of the conversation. You need to bear that in mind. Second point, influence tools do use social data, but it's important to remember that influence wasn't created on social media. It goes far beyond that. So unpack the drivers behind influence. Understand the agendas of the influencers and how that might tally with what you're trying to do as a brand. What's the sweet spot that can deliver a mutually beneficial activation? Work with micro-influencers as well as macro-influencers. There are lots of influencers out there, particularly YouTubers, who have a huge audience, absolutely massive. But these guys are starting to lose some of their accessibility, and as a result, some of their appeal. And there's a campaign from India, Levi's, I Shape the World, and how they're using fairly accessible everyday influencers on that campaign in India. One is a hairdresser, one is a transgender model. So it doesn't have just to be these big celebrities that have these big audiences, but you can tap into people that are influential and can cascade the right type of message for your brand. Touchpoint activation has been a consistent theme across the prize. So last year, the winner, the Grand Prix, was the Ariel Share the Load campaign, and they used some really nice touchpoint creativity in this campaign. If you remember, they created a movement of Share the Load, tapping into this sort of societal need for guys to do more of their fair share of the household chores, the laundry, and they kind of created this whole movement around share the load. And what was really nice is how they kind of translated that through to actually the key pillars of the campaign on pack. They created a his and her pack. So it gave instructions, whether you're a man or a woman, how to do the laundry. On wash care labels, they had the male and female symbol can be washed by both men and women. And then, again, share the load. And then also there was pledges on matrimonial websites. Will you share the load of household chores, which you could tick. So really interesting ways to get that message across. These don't generate reach, of course, but they generate buzz, and they ignite conversations. They get people talking. So this is first campaign I wanted to share with you, and it won a Channel Thinking Special Award. It's for Tata Motors. And what Tata Motors wanted to do, or the truck division, they wanted to address the fact that there is a huge amount of truck drivers, 2 million visits to sex workers per year in India. These guys are on the road, they're lonely, and as a result, there's a huge spike in STDs. So how can they overcome that? In a media dark context, there's no internet access, there's no advertising, so what do? They came up with a really clever way to get across their message. And on the back of trucks in India, those who've been there will know that on the back of every truck is painted this term, use dipper at night, which means please dip your headlights. And what they did is they created a brand of condoms called Dipper. So every time a truck driver is driving, he's facing the rear of another truck, and it says, use Dipper at night. So they didn't have any money, they didn't have any media, but they were able to leverage a message that's already there on the back of every truck to launch a brand of condoms and to help address this critical issue. Let's have a look at the video. We got any volume?
Message painted at the back, use Dipper at night, which inspired us to create a new condom brand, Dipper. Tata Motors, India's largest truck manufacturer, wanted to promote safe sex amongst truck drivers in India, across the second largest roadway in the world. The journeys get lonely. Research proves
Can we go a bit louder, please?
Truck drivers visit sex workers. AIDS awareness was low. We wanted to reach the truckers in remote locations where no media or internet could, in a language they understood best. This line, which means dip headlights at night, became the message. We created a special range of condoms called Dipper, using truck art, a part of the Indian highway culture. These condoms were manufactured by HLL Lifecare Limited, India's leading contraceptive provider, and distributed by TCI Foundation at health clinics, service centers, highway eateries, petrol pumps, and convenience stores. In a condom wallet. As a result, truckers reminded one another to use Dipper at night, with zero media spent. The journey of a trucker still continues, but there's a difference. They are now protected from one of the deadly perils of the highway. An initiative by Tata Motors. Have a safe journey.
I think a really nice example of some channel ingenuity, no budget. How can they get this message across? And they kind of leverage or hijack the message that's already there on the back of every truck and brand their condoms as a result. Quite clever. Okay, the second area that I'd like to look at is using participation to drive engagement. And every year we publish the most effective campaigns in the world. It's called the Walk 100, and this is an extract from the report there. And great participation-led campaigns, including stunts and branded events, are incredibly useful, not just for generating vast PR coverage, but also because they have the potential to generate an intense emotional color. And they do this because they invite consumers to create the sense of belonging with the campaign, to make it their own. They don't talk at them, they communicate with them. And this is particularly the case when it comes to millennials. So here, what we've done is we've broken down the creative strategies for all campaigns, and then the creative strategies that are employed just targeting millennials. And as you would expect, you can see that emotion comes out as top of the tree, the most popular creative strategy used. And then it's user-generated content or participation, and look at how that over-index for campaigns that are targeting millennials. Celebrity, also quite high, over-indexing, and also storytelling. And then interesting to note that information and education under-indexes, as you'd expect, talking to the younger folk. Now, this is a campaign that was targeting millennials and did so with this kind of strong participation campaign. So Manulife in Hong Kong, it's pretty much known in the market for providing retirement solutions, which obviously is going to harm its relevance to younger audiences, right? So it needed to find a way to build a connection with them and to drive sales. So what they did is they came up with this app that integrated with fitness tracking devices. And the more people moved, the more active they were, then the larger the discounts they got on these insurance products. And they promoted it through an integrated campaign. And the campaign was successful in building awareness and consideration and increased sales in very much a declining market. So let's take a look at this.
Insurance is called health insurance when it's never about keeping you healthy. That's why we decided to change the way insurance works, once and for all. Introducing Manulife Move, the first in Hong Kong insurance concept that rewards customers for living healthier. Simple enough. We give out a wearable device that tracks the daily activities of our customers. The more they move, the more they get rewarded. And who else would be more suited to this than our health-conscious Generation Y? The ones who want to be healthy but too unwilling to actually exercise. So to really push a step forward for these young folks, we motivate them to move more, stay active, and get rewarded. Moving more is actually easy, enjoyable, and an essential part of their everyday lives. For starters, we curated walk routes for the weekend warriors who are always looking for interesting experiences to share. And to take it up a notch, we even turn the most common and lackluster routines, such as this, and this, and this, into tiny, exciting adventures. That's why we also got Spotify on board. Be it a playlist for dog walking, a playlist for house cleaning, we got it all. And who says exercising is always boring? Inspired by popular video games, we've invented a gaming machine with motion sensors to encourage fun ways to move more. Local celebrity Paco participated, along with other key influencers, and their scores were recorded on a real-time leaderboard. The public could then join the virtual battle to challenge each other and win prizes. What's more, we boosted our message across media touchpoints. We boosted citywide awareness through a TV commercial.
Manulife Move, an innovative insurance concept.
As well as points of movements where immediate attention can be drawn. Activated on social to earn impressions and user-generated content. Drove conversions by own digital channels. And lastly, we helped insurance advisors to seal the deal. The result? In just 2 months, we boosted 31% more enrollment than our expected target. Raised the brand awareness level by 15%. Brand consideration level by 40%. And over 2.5 billion steps were recorded. That's equal to walking around the world 38 times. We have not only connected the world with Gen Y, but we have also inspired them to move a little more for a bigger difference in their lives. one step at a time.
So I think that's an interesting campaign from the insurance category. You know, these guys who provide retirement solutions, they need to appeal to a younger market. So getting them involved to participate with the campaign using wearable tech, allowing them to get cheaper or better discounts the more they move, I think is a really interesting strategy. The third area of the presentation today is I'd like to address the fact that there's no such thing as low-interest categories. There's only high-interest ideas. And I think this was really brought to bear this year by this campaign. It did exceptionally well around the world. In Cannes, it's kind of swept up all the awards. And this is the Fearless Girl campaign, for those that aren't aware of it. It's for an investment house, State Street, in the US. And for many years, they've been talking about their core messages of female empowerment and leadership. And they've been using kind of the sort of typical touch points that you might expect, sort of conferences a bit like this or white papers. But what they did with their agency is came up with a very unique and different way to get their message across, and just created this wonderful statue, McCann. I see some McCann representation in the room, so I'll call that out. This Fearless Girl facing off the bull at Wall Street. And this provoked a huge amount of conversations around the world, creating that kind of online buzz. But what effect did it have on the business? Well, it had a tremendous effect on the business, because actually, in the context of the third largest fund manager in the US, their trades went up by 348%. Quite phenomenal. And this is from one statue that embodies kind of what their brand message is all about. And when we look at the prize this year, we're seeing, again, a shift in category contribution. Some traditionally more rationally focused categories like pharma and telco are starting to do better within the shortlist. And this is a pharma campaign from China. It's done by PhD in China. It's for Elevit. Elevit is a pregnancy multivitamin. And they had a problem as they wanted to, they weren't able to reach out to end users, and they were very much kind of playing second cousin to the state-owned competitor. So what they had to do is find another way of being able to get their message across. And the situation in China is that men aren't actually allowed to attend the ultrasound of their firstborn baby. So they're actually removed from that experience whatsoever. So what Elevit did is they created this tracker that could record the ultrasound and the heartbeat of their baby. And then they created a wonderful emotional campaign through video about this experience, and then used it for targeting and retargeting, as well as some digital display ads. And the impact, yeah, they created a huge amount of views, but critically in terms of the business, purchase intent increased, growing actual sales by 39% year on year. And this is in the pharma category, where it's very difficult to be able to communicate with the end user. Let's take a look at the video.
In China, parents don't get to share the first time they see their baby due to the government ban preventing fathers from attending the ultrasound. We decided to tackle this separation whilst also solving one of Elevit's biggest challenges. Elevit produced a better prenatal vitamin supplement than their largest government-owned competitor. But Chinese legislation had banned communicating these benefits to consumers, whilst the competitor has unprecedented access to the medical profession, putting it front of mind for parents-to-be. Our objective was to help Elevit become the #1 preferred prenatal vitamin brand, so we directed our focus not on the science, but on the heart. We brought parents-to-be together to share something magical, their child's heartbeat for the first time. Using a heartbeat tracker that records and relieves the special ultrasound moment.
这个心跳是我的还是？
你觉得？
是宝宝的。
We filmed these magical moments to create a branded content series that we tightly targeted towards our audience. Expectant parents were identified through search data from Baidu, China's biggest search engine. To promote sales, we retargeted parents who engaged with our campaign and offered the first 100 e-commerce buyers a Love Before Birth gift pack that included the exclusive Elevate heartbeat tracker. The campaign sparked debates about change to Chinese regulation. 10% of people who saw the campaign went on to find out more about Elevate. And for the first time ever, the purchase intention of our main competitor decreased 58%, whilst Elevate's increased 22%. This led to an impressive 57% sales uplift, while bringing parents together for the first hello.
我感觉到他的心跳，整个人都融化了。
A wonderful example of some emotional storytelling, and yes, that's even possible within the pharma category. Even within the constraints of kind of what the context is around, dads attending the ultrasound of their baby, this heartbeat tracker, unique device, and they built some wonderful emotional content that could engage audiences around that and critically drive their business forward. And here is another example of a high-interest idea coming from a low-interest category, HP lubricants. So this is oil. For engines, basically, and they had a message about road safety they've been talking about for a number of years. But what they decided to do was to come up with some really smart tech, these smart life poles. And there are these kind of very hairy bends in India through the mountains, and typically about 65 to 80 people will die on these roads every month. And what HP Lubricants did is they came up with these smart life poles. So when there is a vehicle coming around the corner, it picks it up by radar, and these poles honk. Literally, they horn and they warn that there is another vehicle coming around the corner. What this has done, in the first month that it was up, 0 deaths, as opposed to 80 or so the previous month. So a really nice example of using tech to get a brand message out there and to drive, this more purposeful stance that they were moving into. The fourth area of today's presentation I'd like to talk about is blue ocean strategies. So there is this thing called a Mephisto waltz. Does anyone know what a Mephisto waltz is? They might be able to explain it a little bit better than I can. Mephisto waltz is an astronomical term where there are 2 black holes, and they get caught up in the gravitational pull of each other, and they circle each other incessantly until they kind of form one black hole. And I think this is a really interesting metaphor for what a lot of brands are doing in their categories. They're kind of just copying each other and moving around each other and just forming this kind of homogeneous pattern. And what brands need to do is they need to break the rules of their category. They need to come up with some blue ocean strategies that can set them apart. And this is just an extract from a best practice guide on challenger brands. And I think this challenger brand mentality is useful for brands and how they can disrupt their own categories. Challenger brands are not defined by their state of mind, but not by their state of market, but by their state of mind. They are brands and businesses determined to change something about the category or the world. They understand that simply following the traditional way of doing things won't achieve the results they crave. So they change the rules in their favor. And this is what brands need to do to differentiate, to disrupt. So here's a really interesting example, Clear Shampoo, and it's in Japan. Shampoo market in Japan is extremely cluttered. Go into a drugstore, there are 500 SKUs on the shelves. Which one do you pick? It's a low-growth category, huge competition. But what the guys did here is they came up with a really ingenious B2B campaign. Yes, a B2B campaign for shampoo. Headgear cover plan. So what they worked out that there are various employers, the workforce use helmets, headgear. And headgear is a kind of hot and sweaty environment for your hair, and it kind of creates scalp problems. So what employers can do as a way of caring for their workforce is provide free shampoo. So what they did is they reached out to employers that have these types of workforces, and they were able to drive growth as a result. Let's take a look.
Headgear offers more than safety and hygiene to its wearers. It symbolizes their pride and professionalism. However, they also suffer. They must endure stuffiness and sweat a lot. Clear, the world's leading scalp care shampoo, worked with dermatologists to study what goes on under hats, caps, and helmets.
働く防止内は熱帯雨林レベルの過酷な職場環境であることが分かりました。
To save these scalps, Clear developed the Headgear Cover Plan, the world's first scalp care plan. The plan enables companies requiring headgear use to purchase Clear at an exclusive website for a special corporate price and supply it for free to their employees. Their research indicating urgent needs, Clear proposed scalp care plans targeting organizations with headgear workers and also developed an IoT device for scalp analysis. And companies and teams responded immediately.
ヘルメットは乗りやすいので選手たちは大変喜んでおります。仕事の合間にスッキリできて業務効率も上がりました。
A professional baseball team, a global pizza chain, construction companies, and hotels were among the various organizations that decided to offer the plan. Delighted comments and requests for the plan went viral through SNS. All this led to extensive media coverage and got people talking about the plan. Clear Headgear Cover Plan. Headgear warriors, we salute you.
A really interesting way to carve out a bit of growth in the shampoo market, targeting employers and making shampoo an office supply. Who would have thought of that? There are a few examples of blue ocean strategies in the prize this year. This one was Durex jeans. So the problem with the condom market in India, and I imagine in most markets, is people don't want to go into a pharmacy and buy condoms in such an obvious manner. It's a bit of an embarrassing purchase, and you want to do it in kind of quite a discreet manner. So Durex, capitalizing on this, they decided to launch this jeans brand in India. And basically what it was a condom that was branded as, looked like, had jeans apparel. It was called jeans, and it fitted neatly into a jeans pocket, so very subtle, very discreet. And they teased the launch of this by actually suggesting that they were going to launch a jeans brand in India. This is done by Havas. Again, appropriating the kind of the cues of the fashion category to overcome a particular challenge and to drive growth. Another example from India, actually, Vodafone. So this is to do with the launch of 4G in India. In actual fact, only 4% of phones at the time of launch, 4G launch in India, could access 4G. But Airtel went in there first, talked about 4G, kind of owned the conversation, as it were, and as a result became the aspirational carrier. Vodafone, as a result, suffered. They were late to the party, and they didn't have such capability. So what they wanted to do was to reframe the conversation around SuperNet. So taking it away from the numbers, alphanumeric of 4G, and talk about SuperNet. And they created some really emotional stories about everyday heroes using Vodafone SuperNet, the quality of the coverage to be able to overcome the hurdles they want. And it's one dad who's delivering his son in a fancy dress party at the bus, and his toga comes undone, and he's able to kind of go onto YouTube and see how it's done. Using Vodafone SuperNet, and another guy is taking his daughter, trying to find a public laboratory, and is using kind of the coverage to give him kind of good directions to that and help his child. So another interesting way of reframing the conversation around the kind of big news in the category in a way that's branded and unique to that particular carrier. Okay, so the fifth area of today's presentation is storytelling and social change. And when we look at, again, creative approaches that are used in the shortlist over the last 3 years, we can see, yes, emotion increasing quite dramatically over the last 3 years, storytelling also increasing, but what's interesting, sustainability and responsibility becoming increased. Lots of people are jumping into more purposeful type messaging. And we see this again when we look at the data of creative approaches, all entries versus the shortlist. Emotion number one, over-indexing on the shortlist, storytelling over-indexing, and then also if you look at sustainability and responsibility. So this would suggest that emotional storytelling using social purpose can be a very effective strategy. This is a model that I've just pulled out of a best practice guide on WARC and how to discover your brand purpose. And I like it because it sort of breaks down the difference between brand positioning and brand purpose. If brand positioning is about the what your brand stands for within the dynamics of your category, brand purpose is why your brand can be relevant to your target audience. And how do you get there? By interrogating your target audience, understanding their world, their immediate world, their friends, families, and communities, and then understanding their connection to the world at large. And it's an interesting kind of continuum of how you can extend out a brand purpose type messaging, whether it's just about that person and their community, or whether you want to take a more sustainable eco-type positioning. I'm going back to Nicole again. And she talked about, when it came to the winner of the WARC Prize for Asian Strategy, she said they were very successful because they took a taboo subject that can be fraught with danger. However, SK2, that picked up the award, they managed to navigate the complexities to construct a narrative and a strategy that struck a chord with consumers and the judges alike. And I think it's really overcoming the complexity and really demonstrating an understanding of the target audience. This is a report on WARC from the Journal of Advertising Research on the application of creativity in China. And it's the results of a survey interviewing about 18 professionals. And yes, they talked about the kind of opportunity for creativity in China that there is with application of real insights and a unique understanding of target audience. There is this opportunity for Chinese creativity to develop its own voice. But what there were two mental models that dominated client decision-making process. One is this notion that, that advertising is more decorative than strategic in China. And the secondly is this fear model that creativity is a high-risk venture. And interestingly, I shared this with a bunch of client marketers last week in Beijing at a CCTV event, encouraging them to inject more creativity into their advertising. So it's the importance of strategy and how to mitigate risk. And I think this campaign does it absolutely brilliantly. So the Grand Prix this year for the WARC Prize for Asian Strategy went to SK2. And what's really interesting about this is it's a Japanese brand in China. They, in 2006, there was a PR crisis around their business. They were accused by the Chinese government of actually using illegal ingredients. And they practically had to retreat from the market. The category is dominated by the European players L'Oreal and Lancôme. And what SK2 wanted to do with their agency is really find a way of connecting with Chinese women. And this really plays to kind of what we heard earlier this morning from Viacom and from Tom Doctorow, finding a language, an emotional language that can connect with women in China. There is this government term, actually, called shengnu, or leftover women. And it's these women that they work hard, but they haven't managed to find a spouse, and it's become a bit of a stigma in China. And there is this thing called the marriage market in Shanghai. And what the brand did is they interrogated this target audience, really understanding kind of what they're about. They did masses of ethnographic studies. Really, they moved from kind of understanding the Chinese audience, the Chinese women, to actually empathizing with them, and created this film about what these leftover women are, what they really feel, what's important to them and their friends and family, and then overtook this marriage market in Shanghai and replaced the adverts of these women and men with fantastic portraits of who they are and what they're about and what they stand for. And I think what's unique about this is it was actually done by an agency outside Asia. It was done by an agency in Sweden, Forsman and Bodenfors. And what's interesting is that I think, and they talked about this at the prize last week, because they were coming from outside China and Asia, they were able to really interrogate the audience and the context and the situation. And I think they pushed the boundaries on really kind of developing that kind of deep, compelling insight. And this is the campaign that they developed as a result.
不是小孩子了，
把自己嫁出去。
第一天不结婚，父亲就不死。
不要任性，
可怜天下父母心啊！
挑来挑去的，
哪个不合适？
到个年龄就应该结婚。
你现在已经是剩女了。
剩女这个词给人的感觉就是剩下来的女人。给我的感觉就是说，其实好像25岁以后还不结婚就是剩女了。
可能会被别人说，或者被家人催，或者有些社会的压力吧。所以过年回家是压力最大的，因为全部人都会在问你，你都多大了，还没结婚呢？
你年龄也不小啦。
他们就可能觉得，就是在中国这个社会，就是一定要结婚，那才是一个完整的女人。
你还在城外的感觉。
以前拉着对象，那就人家已经结婚了。
我个人认为，我不太喜欢人民广场的相亲角，然后可能都是父母，然后拿了一个女儿或者儿子的介绍，然后放在那边。
收入啊，工作是什么样子的？有没有房子？有没有车子？
挂个招商启事给卖出去是那种。中华儿女嘛，就是孝有为当先，因为他反正就不结婚，肯定是就是不孝的一种。
以前我总认为我的女儿肯定性格好嘛，人也不是长得太漂亮，一般嘛，所以到现在还是生下来了。
渴望真爱，对我还是很渴望爱情的。
赶快把它解决好了算了，你不要太残忍了，对吗？
也许想要放弃找个自己喜欢的、适合的也挺好。
你说要真正找不到，也是我们老两口一个心病。
可能这方面我比较自私，我想跟他说对不起。然后我希望我这样的一个状态非常能够得到父母的认可。
我就算一个人，就是幸福、快乐、自信的，然后好好过。
后来想开了，就是我说剩女，那我工作强了，现在有女强人嘛，这么一说的话，直到等到那个对的人，妈妈永远支持你。
对于自己生活这件事，我是很开心的，然后很自由，我也享受一个人的状态。
我女儿很美，剩女很光荣啊。独立人也应该活得很精彩的，这就是我想。
他如果觉得单身的也蛮好， 我们还是会尊重她的。
是优秀的女孩啊，盛兰要努力呀。
自信，独立，热爱生活，不错的一位女性。
So I think in the Chinese context, a really, really brave campaign, a great understanding of the audience there, and developing some real empathetic work that really understands who they are and what they're about. And a very significant commercial uplift as a result. Fantastic results from this campaign. So in summary, for today's presentation, here is a kind of quick infographic of how kind of wrapped up the kind of key points in terms of channel, creative approach, and category behavior. In terms of channel, 78% of shortlisted campaigns used online video, and this is up from 34% in 2016. 2 out of 5 shortlisted campaigns targeted influencers. Channel choice was core to an effective strategy. In terms of the creative approach, 72% of shortlisted campaigns used emotion, and this is increasing from 41% in 2015. Storytelling over-indexing, again, as an effective approach. Social purpose, especially gender equality, continues to be front of mind for many brands. Category behavior, high interest ideas are coming from more rational type categories, telco and pharma, which is really exciting. And lots of examples of blue ocean strategies emerging, taking a entirely new approach in different categories. And overall, there's this theme of client bravery. To see clients made bold choices overcoming adversity. And hopefully through the prize there are more proof points from success stories that help mitigate the risk and help clients and their agencies to do braver, more challenging work. So just some kind of 5 key takeaways. Do consider disruptive pieces of channel planning to stand out. Remember that storytelling is a cross-channel, multi-sensory discipline. Invite millennials to get involved with your campaign. Invite them to create the brand story themselves. It can be a really powerful way of engaging them. Don't be constrained in thinking you're in a low-interest category. There are lots of examples out there of high-interest marketing coming from, so to speak, low-interest categories. Be brave and look for the opportunities to disrupt. Look for the blue ocean strategies. Don't get caught up in that Mephisto waltz. And fifthly, purpose. It offers this sense of transformational progression in storytelling. Tap into what really matters into your audience by really interrogating who they are and what they're about. So those are the takeaways from today's presentation. If you'd like a copy of the deck, you can grab one on this QR code. But anyway, thank you very much for your time and listening. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Very emotional. You were trying to ruin my makeup there. I was crying in the corner there. Thank you very much. A quick note before we thank Ed again for his fantastic presentation. Next in this room, we'll be welcoming Darren Jacobs, Head of Global Digital Media at iClick Interactive Asia, for his session on Bridging the Opportunity Gap, the secret to launching a data-driven approach in China. But finally, one more big thank you to Ed for that.
Thank you. Thanks.